Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today we're doing Chapter 9 of Leviathan Wakes, which is a Holden chapter. And the last time we saw the Holden gang, the Holden boys, they'd just spotted 6 Belter ships approaching them on their way to meet up with the Donager. So Holden's done his little posting episode, he's gone all over their version of Twitter in the future, telling them about the Canterbury being blown up. And the Donager is on the way to meet them, and they're on the way to meet the Donager, and these kind of Belter ships are approaching, and they can't figure out what's going on. And this chapter opens with Naomi saying they are still not responding. So they've been trying to get their attention, being like, "Yo, boys, what you saying?" And they're not replying. And they're just floating over, and Holden's like, "That's fine, as long as we tried. It makes us, we don't look suspicious. Like we're not trying to be with them." And kind of, so at this point, they're still on the ship, and they're kind of just getting along and like looking after each other. So we open, and they've talked about that, and Holden's offering Naomi some food. And Amos is coming in, and they've been on the ship for 3 days now, so his coverall was so filthy it shined, and everyone's personal hygiene is very bad. The night doesn't have showers, the little shutter they're on, and the 0G sinks were too small to stick your head in. Amos had solved it all by going bold, he just shaved it all off, but somehow Naomi's hair stayed shiny and mostly oil-free. Holden wondered how she did that, which is, again, that I think is a good example of the male mindset and the magical nature of women. They can do things like that, and as poor men, we just don't know what's going on. It's that male mindset. Powerful in some ways, but in other things we are particularly ignorant. And I like that with Holden. That's a proper man's response right there. And I also rate Amos for shaving his head, like good old lockdown. So Holden gives him a protein bar, gives Naomi one. And Amos looks at it and goes, "God damn, boss, I'd give my left nut for food that didn't look like a dildo." Holden's asking about how the water's doing, and Eamon's said he's been around the holes all day, and he's sealed all the holes and put epoxy on what he can, tightened all these nuts. But Naomi says it's going to be right down to the wire. The recycling systems are crap on the ship, and they if they had to spend more than a few more days, they'd run out of water. The ship's not very good. And Holden's like, "It's fine as long as we get there. It's happy days." Amos finishes his bar and wanders off to go spray some deodorant because he smells so bad it's keeping him awake, and Holden can barely eat it because it tastes like greased cardboard. He says to Naomi what's Shed up to, who's the medic who they kind of escape with. So there's also Alex of the guys involved in the ship. And Naomi's like, "Jim, he's not doing well. You got to go look after him. All of us are used to space. You guys are Navy. Amos has been flying so long, 3 ships have gone down under him." And Holden jokes that Naomi's made of cast iron and titanium, which he says only 90% with a smile. But he needs to go and speak to Shed, and Holden's like, "I don't know what to do. I'm no psychiatrist." And Naomi's like, "I didn't say you had to fix him. I said you needed to talk to him," which I think is quite a nice little quote. Now Holden starts going, "Oh, geez. Oh, cheers, Naomi. I really appreciate it." And she's like, yeah, I know. Just go fix him. Go with the captain and go speak to him. And Holden goes down to the knight's sick bay. Apparently it's more like a sick closet, and it's just tiny, with like basically a cabinet, a stool, a tiny bed, and that's about it. And he's like, "Hey, buddy, can I come in?" And saying internal dialogue has been like, "Did I actually just say hey, buddy?" Which is very humanizing. And Shed is kind of pretending he's busy, and Holden's like, "Yeah, look, I know everyone's been hit really hard, and you've been a bit quiet, but can we speak?" And then all of a sudden, Shed shows him a tube paste and says, "Look, this is 3% acetic acid. I didn't know we had it on the ship. The Canterbury's run out, and I've got 3 people with GW who could really use it. It's not gone wild, but it's genital warts." Holden's like, "What the fuck you on about?" And Shed's like, yeah, this cream's great for genital warts. It can just burn them right off. But I don't know why it's here. I've got people on the cant that need it." And then Shed's getting increasingly higher pitch in his voice, and he's like, "It's wild because I can get rid of genital warts, but we've got no pain relief. And we haven't got any coagulant booster. So if you get genital warts, you get red bumps on your crank, sure, I can sort that out. But bleeding, no way." And he's saying, "I tell all these guys on the Canterbury, the Saturn station hookers bang everybody. You gotta put a glove on it, but they won't." And Holden's listening to this, and he's feeling his jaw slide forward, and he's grabbing and he kind of steps into the room even more, stares at Shed, and goes, "Everybody on the cant is dead. They're all dead. No one needs the antibiotics. No one needs the wart cream." And Shed stops speaking and looks like someone's punched all the air out of him. And the poor bloke is like, I know, I just need some time." And Holden has to sit him down and go, yeah, that's fine, but you got to talk to people. You can't do this alone. You're our doctor. And Shed's like, "I'm not a doctor, I'm just like a medical tech," I think is what he's called himself. And Holden's like, all right, you are, because you're our doctor in this situation. And it's fine if you want to cry, but do it with us. We'll sit together in the galley and get drunk and cry like babies, but we'll do it together. No more hiding down here. And Shad goes, fine, but please can we do that? And Holden says, yes, report to the galley at 2000 hours, and Mr. Garvey, and bring a cup. Which is a good bit of mano mental health care. He grabs his shoulder, Holden grabs his shoulder and leaves. And he heads up because he's been summoned by Naomi to the kind of the main room, the galley, and they're getting a tight beam. So instead of like a wide broadcast, the idea this is like a laser. So you point it on a particular point, and people can't intercept it as much because it's like a tightly focused bit of information rather than going everywhere. But the thing with tight beam as well is you can tell where it comes from because obviously it's like a laser point. And gets there and he's like, oh, who's this tight beam from? And they're like, it's from this empty bit of belt space. And the only thing there is a Tycho, which is a belter kind of engineering firm. There's only some Tycho works there, but that's it. And Alex says, someone out there has a comma ray that'll put a dot the size of Uranus on us from over 3 AU, which I think is orbital unit, something A unit. I don't know what it is now. God, I'm good at this podcasting game, aren't I? And it's like, he's like, what's this anus-sized dot saying? And Naomi's like, my boy, you're never going to believe this. And it opens, and there's a video. It says, a dark-skinned man with the heavy facial bones of an earther appeared on the screen. His hair was greying, and his neck was ropey with old muscle. He smiled and said, hello, James Holden. My name is Fred Johnson. Oh. Now, Fred is probably one of my favourite characters in The Expanse. And I admit I am biased, because very rarely do you meet a Fred in any kind of online media or any reading you do. It's not a particularly common name. You normally see it when you go to like a service station and there's all those names for like stickers and stuff. You normally get one, but you don't get it that often, so it's always good to see a Fred. And Naomi's like, holy shit, that's Frederick Johnson. And James is like, yeah. Jim's like, well, yeah, that's cool, what? And he didn't really get it, and he says the pause might have been a second, it might have been an hour. But the man on the screen he was once like one of the best officers in the UN, to the Earther Navy, and he ended up being one of the most embarrassing failures. To Belters, he was the Earther Sheriff of Nottingham who turned into Robin Hood. To Earth, he was the hero who had fallen from grace. And we get a bit of description about him. So not only do I like him because he's got my name, he's even described in the context of the city I grew up in. Very cool. Very, very cool. So we get some background on Frederick Johnson, who ends up being, I think, a relatively major character for like quite a few books. He's very powerful. And his background is when there'd be tension between Earth and Mars, and the navies had to go away from patrolling the belt, there'd always be crime there. But then one time there was that tension, Captain Johnson, who, as he was then, had a few ships in the belt, and he was so aggressive in getting pirates that crime actually went down. And he came back, and everyone was like, damn, this boy's hot. And he was given, after the Earth and Mars got back together, like control of a coalition fleet, and they kind of went around the belt and stuff. And one day they came across Anderson Station, which is described as a tiny shipping depot, just in the middle of nowhere, and it distributes air and water as a trading post, and only 1 million belters got their air and water from there. We had a few chapters ago how many belters there are, but the idea is it's very small and not very important. But then one day, the coalition bureaucrat on the station increases the surcharge on air and water. And there's a lovely phrase where it's less than 5% of the belters buying the air from Anderson Station were living bottle to mouth, or hand to mouth, which is quite interesting. And basically you realise that there's a load of people out there who are so poor from all their trading, they are, by the minute they run out of air and water, they can just about afford the next set, and they can't afford an increase like that. And it's important that the coalition bureaucrat on the station increases the prices and control, because he's not a belter, he'll be someone from the inner, he'll be an inner. So basically 170 belters come to the station, throw this prick out the airlock and say, government, please don't increase the surcharge again, because otherwise we'll all starve. Well, not starve actually, they won't starve, because that's one thing they won't do, but they will dehydrate and run out of air. And then in response, the coalition sent Frederick Johnson, and the 170 belters on the station kept the cameras rolling the entire time, ended up being like a really bad siege. All on video, all killed. And the last image is like Frederick Johnson walking around a load of dead bodies that had made their last stand, with a flat stare, hands limp at his side, and just surrounded in blood. And afterwards it's like, holy shit, what the fuck's happened there? It was all over the news, and Colonel Johnson makes a public announcement apologising for the massacre, and announcing the relationship between the belt and the inner planets was untenable and heading towards even greater tragedy, and he vanished. And that would have basically been it. the Butcher of Anderson Station, as he's later called. But then Palace Colony had a revolt a few years later, and instead of 170 rebels, 150,000 people went on this revolt. And when the coalition ordered the Marines, everyone expected a bloodbath. And then you learn that Frederick Johnson actually turned up, and he negotiated for a year and avoided it. And he went from being the Butcher of Anderson Station to a belt icon and hero, being the guy to kind of look after everybody there. And rather than being the military leader, which he still is, he did it all through peaceful means and in a situation that was more equitable for the belt. So he's gone from being like your gunslinger, hero, war veteran to like a fucking negotiator and trade unionist, effectively civil rights leader for the belt. And basically sent this video to the boys, and he goes, "Mr. Holden, I think you're being played. Let me straight out say that I'm a representative of the OPA." And he says, like, for the last 10 years, I've been working to make things better without bloodshed. I've changed my ways, and I may be the one person who wants the war the least. And my voice is loud in OPA councils. And he says he's talked to all the OPA leaders he knows, because he's a big boy now. He's physically described as a big boy as well. That's how you know he's important. Although short, because obviously he's an earther compared to belters. And he's basically saying that he spoke to everybody he can, and he has no idea who did this attack on the Canterbury. And he thinks someone is trying very hard to get a war started. And because he knows the boys are about to get, not kidnapped, but they're about to join the Belters, he says, I'm going to send you a keyword. Next time you broadcast publicly, use the word ubiquitous in the first sentence of the signal that you're not being coerced. Don't use it, and I'll assume you are. And he just wants Holden to basically know, I got you back. And you want to speak to me, we can help each other out. And the message ends, which is very exciting, of like being talked to by Fred Johnson. I can't think if he would be like in the real world, but he's a very cool boy. Then we cut to after that, and the crew is sat around in the galley drinking a bottle of tequila Amos had found from somewhere, which is a bit of an Amos superpower, if there was one. It's being able to just pull out tequila from anywhere, which is, again, I also think quite a good superpower to have. And we've got a description where Shed is like softly sipping it in the corner, while Amos and Alex are drinking like sailors and swearing every time. Alex says "hoo boy" after every shot, because he's obviously Texan cowboy, despite being an Indian fella. And then Amos is using different profanity each time he takes a swig. He was on his 11th shot, and so far had not repeated himself. And so while they're drinking away like absolute geezers, Holden stares at Naomi, and he guesses about her genetic background, a bit of phrenology. We're basically like, you're called Naomi Nagata, but you've got African and South American in there, but the name hints at Japanese. And he says she'll never be conventionally pretty, but from the right angle, she was actually fairly striking. And he goes, "Shit, I'm drunker than I thought," which is complete man energy. And then he kind of moves the conversation on, and they're all like, "Shit, Holden, you're quite important now if Frederick Johnson's speaking to you." And they're kind of discussing what to do, and Amos is saying, well, if he's offering to help, why don't we just go see him and like leave this? There's mystery ships, Martian battleships, it's a bit crowded out here. And Alex is like, there's no way we can do it, we're too close, we may as well just go all the way there, otherwise they'll just blow us up. And Holden's like, yeah, he's got a point. They've deleted the message, but they will speak out to Fred in the future. And then Holden's kind of sat there, he says he unzips his jumpsuit a little further, and the galley was starting to feel very hot with 5 drunk people in it. Naomi raised an eyebrow at his days-old t-shirt, embarrassed he zipped it back up, which is quite cute. And also, you imagine after only like 3 days, it said earlier on, didn't it? And they've got like 10 more, they're going to be stinky boys by the end of that. I think it'd be a bit like the end of The Martian, isn't it? When he's rescued, in the books anyway, in The Martian, when he's rescued after like 2 years on the surface of Mars, he gets into the spaceship, and he's mentally and physically, he's absolutely broken. He's only been eating potatoes for so long, he hasn't even washed in for like years, and he finally greets his crew who'd left him on the planet and they come back to get him. And the whole point is he's so smelly they start gagging, which they kind of missed about out of the film. In the books, it's quite a cute little scene. It was a very, very good book actually, and it's also a very good film. But anyway, then they get they're sat there and they're like, those ships, they don't even make... Alex says, those ships, they don't make sense to me. A half-dozen ships flying kamikaze missions with nukes strapped to their hulls might make a dent in the battle wagon like the Donny, but not much else. And he's basically describing that the Donny is so powerful. It's one of the most powerful ships in the universe at that point, actually, this like latest Martian battleship. What are they doing? And Amos pours the last of tequila into everyone's cups, held his up in a toast, and says, I guess we'll fucking find out. Just a great line to end it up. So at this point, the boys are going to go. We're having this next chapter, next Holden one anyway. They'll get picked up, and they'll speak to those guys. But yeah, good little chapter. I enjoyed that. You get the first bit of Holden going, shit, Naomi's quite fit, with all her nice hair. You get Frederick Johnson, who's a very good character throughout, and you're kind of setting the scenes for. If I remember correctly, it's either the next Holden one or the one after where things really kind of knock it up a notch. Should be good. And yeah, I want to apologise again if I sound weird. The tinnitus is driving me up the fucking wall. But yeah, cheers everyone for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.